Hello, friends. Welcome to week 8. This is going to be a fun lesson and a fun week, I hope. Today we are going to be working on week 8, lesson 1, and it is a short story called Flying Blind. And this is my favorite short story to teach every year, so I hope you really enjoy it. Our objective today, students will be able to analyze a short story for plot and theme. The things you're going to need to have out, you need to have out the PDF copy of the story, Flying Blind. You'll need a piece of paper and something to write with, and at the end you'll need your Microsoft form. So let's talk about a few vocabulary words before we jump into the story. The first word is coltish. So coltish is energetic but awkward in one's movement or behavior. So in our picture, we have two pigeons and they're talking about what are some other words for coltish? Frisky, frolicsome, supportive, playful, lively, spirited. Okay, so these are words that mean the same thing. And the sentence says, the basketball player was coltish on the court. He didn't play that well, but he was full of energy. The next word we have is arrogance. Arrogance is having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. My example sentence is, my sister is so arrogant. She thinks she is the smartest and most beautiful person on the planet. So in this example, this person's sister really thinks that they are the best, even though they might not be. That's not my sister, but this person's sister. All right, so we're gonna jump in, and I would really strongly recommend that you stick with me as we read the whole text, because this text, I've noticed, can be confusing for some kids. So we're going to read the whole thing, and then if you want to do the exit ticket by yourself, you can, but I will walk you through all of the questions after we read. The red phone rings at 22:04 hours. State Trooper Ed Colton blinks and rubs his eyes. He spent the last 20 minutes staring into the radar's monitor screen, and now its ghostly green circles burns the inside of his eyelids. He was watching this beautiful night turn to soup. So this is figurative language. So it started out as a beautiful night, and then it turned to soup. What do we think that could mean? Soup is really wet, right? So I'm thinking it means that it's turning really stormy, it's turning into a really, really gross night. And I can infer that State Trooper Colton is really tired because it's a late hour and he's rubbing his eyes. One low bank of clouds moved in from Indianapolis. The other swept north from Louisville, drawing strength from the Ohio River like a man drinks a milkshake from a straw. The two storms met at New Lebanon and spread east over Dayton, gathering strength as they approached the Ohio State Patrol helicopter hangar at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So this is where Ed Colton is. So he is looking at the radar, looking at the storms. We have one storm over here and one storm over here, and they're like merging together. They're coming together. Picking up the red receiver, Colton hears the first raindrops hit the hangar roof. As visibility drops to 800 feet, he knows the next phone call will be from Air Traffic Control Tower in Dayton, grounding his helicopter for the night. State Patrol, he says, trying harder than usual to sound bored. Okay, so when you ground an airplane or you ground a helicopter, that means that they're not allowed to fly. A helicopter or an airplane cannot fly in a thunderstorm. Because think about it, you have this metal contraption, right? Whether it's an airplane or a helicopter, you're flying along. If you're in a thunderstorm, and lightning is electricity, right? And an airplane is made of metal. So if lightning strikes, all the computer systems could go out. It could cause significant damage to the plane. And so when they say they're going to ground the airplanes and the helicopters, it's because it's not safe to fly. All right, let's start with paragraph 3. We read the paragraph 3. Let's read paragraph 4. The 911 operator is new, Colton knows, but she is efficient and well-trained. The car crash, oh, that cut off. So there's a car crash on Urbana on State Route 68. 2 females, both in critical condition. Request transport to the Children's Hospital. The State Patrol accept the mission. So Colton, we know, gets this phone call. There's this big storm that's coming. They're about to ground the airplanes, but all of a sudden they get this call and the ambulance helicopter needs to go rescue these 2 teenage girls that were in a car crash. To stall, so that means to save time, or to waste some time, Colton takes a breath. Air Trooper 1 is a Bell 429 helicopter. Flat out, it can make it to Urbana in 9 minutes. He'd fly north by northeast, maybe a quarter mile ahead of the storm's face. Best case, he lands, loads the patients, and takes off before the rain really hits. Worst case, the storm overtakes him. He'd be stuck trying to land an underpowered aircraft on a 2-lane highway in heavy wind and rain with no radar and no lights. Colton flips the question around. Most crash victims near Urbana go to Springfield Regional, the closest hospital with a cramped emergency room. If these girls need transport all the way to a level 1 trauma center, 45 miles away at Columbus Children's, they must be 16 years old, maybe 17, and they're in pretty bad shape. Okay, so our pilot here, Colton, he has to decide. Does he risk flying in this storm to save these 2 girls, even though it might not be safe? Or does he stay where it's safe, and then we don't know what might happen to the girls? Beside the phone, the flight radio squawks with static. Roger, Dayton Tower, this is Air Medical 3, leaving Springfield Regional, flying to base in Tip City, over. Colton knows that voice. It's Dale Domer, a pilot who was hired onto Air Medical when the private company opened its first base 2 years ago. Between his fake Southern accent and his coltish arrogance with a helicopter, Domer was the perfect hire for the guys who own Air Medical, whom Colton secretly considers a couple of half-wit cowboys. Alright, so here we have a new pilot, Dale Domer. He works for this other company, and Domer says he's taking off in the storm. Well, they can fly in this stuff, we sure can, Colton says, before dropping the red receiver back in its cradle. Okay, so Colton hears this guy, who he doesn't like and he doesn't trust, say, yeah, we're flying. And he says to himself, well, if that clown can fly in this, I can fly in this. Do you think that's a good choice? Do you think that's a safe choice? Is that a good reason to make this decision? 6 minutes later, the rotors of Air Trooper 1 are spinning. The 2 flight nurses, Sam Shifton and Ariel Gupta, wipe raindrops from their foreheads as they clinch down their shoulder belts. Colton pulls the throttle grip towards his knees and the steering stick into his lap, and the helicopter jumps off the tarmac. The tarmac is where the planes take off, and the throttle and the steering stick, those are the controls inside the helicopter. So he hears Dale, who he doesn't like, say, yeah, we're flying in this. So he's like, sure, I can fly too. And now he has not just his life on the line, but his life and the 2 nurses, Sam and Ariel. He veers east to outrun the rain. Colton takes a left turn, aims his nose for Urbana, and looks to see the full moon streaming through the windscreen and lighting up the cockpit. He chuckles in his car. He'd flip down the sun visor. So the moon is so bright, he's laughing to himself, saying, like, if I were in my car, I'd put the sun visor down. It's so bright. Ha ha ha. Right? It's not raining that bad. I want you to stop here and make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen to Colton in this storm? To the left, he sees the moonlight bouncing off the storm wall. He thinks, that thing just got bigger. It's 6,000 feet tall now, with high winds pushing a knot of cloud forward from the main front like a boxer throwing a punch. Alright, so in front of him is the moon, and he looks over here and he's like, oh no, this storm is worse than I thought it was. Colton pulls the throttle. Remember, that's the controller. The Bell's nose dips and the helicopter shudders as it reaches 178 miles an hour, its maximum speed. Urbana comes into view. Colton uses the lights of Main Street to fly right up the town's spine. Looking left, he sees the lights from the car lots on the west side of town become engulfed by the storm, turning the bellies of clouds orange. When we land, you guys are gonna have to move, Colton shouts to the nurses in back. Finally, he sees the ambulance. Colton climbs, slows, brings his tail around 180 degrees, and drops his skids in the middle of the road. The skids are like the bottom, the flat part of the helicopter that like land. Gupta shoves the sliding door aside. The ambulance crew pushes one gurney forward. Together they lift the victim into the helicopter. Where's the other one? Colton asks. She didn't make it, the paramedic yells back. Alright, so one of the girls in the crash died. They put one girl in the helicopter, so now we have Colton, the two nurses, and the injured girl from the car crash in the helicopter. I already read 19, so I'm going to start with 20. Colton nods. The nurses fumble with the straps as they tie the gurney to the helicopter floor, which is jumping like a wild horse. We've got wind, Colton says. Let's go, let's go. Okay, so they're trying to take off. It's storming, and it's, right? It's really shaking, right? If it's shaking like, what did he say? Like a wild horse, jumping like a wild horse. The nurses take their seats and Colton lifts off. The helicopter climbs, but slowly, fighting the storms. Colton thinks, I'm lifting, we're gonna make it. He sees the power line at the last possible moment. With the storm to his back, he cannot climb any faster, and he cannot stop it. He feels the impact before he hears it, and he knows he has hooked the power line with his skids. As Air Trooper 1 loses speed, time slows down. Colton pulls the stick with all his strength, hoping to break the line. The helicopter is temporarily suspended, roaring full throttle, but motionless in the sky. The radio comes to life. This is Dayton Tower. Please be advised that all air traffic is suspended until further. And that's where it ends. Alright, so I want you to imagine this. The helicopter is taking off. It's in the storm. The winds are really strong. It's shaking. And all of a sudden, Colton realizes, oh no, I did not see this power line. So his skids caught on the power line. And he's trying to break it. And as he's trying to break it, we don't know what happens. We just know that he's listening to this radio thing from like all air traffic is grounded, and that's it. It goes blank. So we can infer that he probably crashed, but we don't know. It leaves you up to the imagination. Like you have to use your imagination to figure out what happened to the pilot. Alright, today's secret word is sunscreen. Please use sunscreen if you go outside. It will help you not get skin cancer. Alright, so at this point I am going to go through and I am going to go over each of the questions with you. If you feel confident in your ability to answer the questions without help, you may do that. Just make sure to do a good job. Alright, which of the following statements most strongly supports the conclusion that Colton did not think that Dale Domer was an excellent helicopter pilot? So what text evidence shows us that Colton thinks that Dale is not a good pilot? Dale Domer is flying to the base in Tip City during a storm. Domer has a fake Southern accent and coltish arrogance. Dale Domer is a pilot who hired into Air Medical when the private company opened its first base 2 years ago. Domer was the perfect hire for the guys who own Air Medical, whom Colton secretly considers a couple of half-wit cowboys. Alright, so it's not this one. So remember, coltish arrogance means that he thinks he's better than he is, and he has a fake accent, not even a real accent. He was hired into Air Medical. I mean, that's just a fact. That's not necessarily why he doesn't like him. He was a perfect hire for the guys who own Air Medical, whom Colton secretly considers a couple of half-wit cowboys. All right, so which answer choice shows us that Domer is not a good pilot? Not all of the pilots at Air Medical, just Dale. Okay, so which one? Read these lines from the text below. Well, if they can fly in this stuff, we sure can. Based on this statement, what is the best description for the relationship between Colton and Domer? Is it respectful? Does Colton respect Domer as a pilot? No. Competitive? That means like, I'm going to do better than you. I'm going to beat you at this. If he could fly in this, I can fly in this. Hateful or friendly? We know it's not friendly. So I want you to decide, do you think it is competitive or hateful? Does he think Colton, is his relationship more competitive or more hateful? All right, let's look at question 3. Paragraphs 13 and 14 are important to the story because, that should say they, show how quickly the storms can dissipate. That means, dissipate means to fade away. Compares flying in a storm to flying in clear weather. Emphasizes how similar flying in a helicopter is to driving a car, or highlights Colton has a false sense of safety. All right, so let's look at these 2 paragraphs and then see what we think. He veers to the east to outrun the rain. Colton takes a left turn, aims his nose for Urbana, and looks up to see the full moon streaming in through the windscreen and lighting up the cockpit. He chuckles. If he were in his car, he'd flip the sun visor down. All right, so here he's feeling like he's got this. He's confident. He feels safe. To his left, he sees the moonlight bouncing off the storm wall. He thinks, that thing just got bigger. It's 6,000 feet tall now, with high winds pushing a knot of clouds forward from the main front, like a boxer throwing a punch. So in this paragraph, he feels confident and safe, and then he realizes, uh-oh, maybe I should not have felt so confident and safe. Okay? So we're not comparing flying in a storm to flying in clear weather. And we know the storm's not dissipating, it's getting stronger. So between C and D, is he comparing it to driving a car, or does he have a false sense of safety? That means he thinks he's safe when he's really not. Near the end of the story, Colton thinks, I'm lifting, we're going to make it. Why do you think the author included these lines? What do they add to the story? Okay, so we know that Colton didn't make it, right? So why do you think the author put those lines in there? What do they do to the reader? So you're going to answer this using a complete sentence or 2. And then question 5, what inference can the reader make based on the ending to the story? The storm clears up and Air Trooper 1 is able to make it to the hospital? No. Air Trooper 1 broke free from the power line but was distracted by the storm? Maybe. Air Trooper 1 crashed, causing the pilot not to hear the radio? Maybe. The radio is advising Air Trooper 1 to continue despite the storm. Well, he's just grounded all air traffic, so we know that's not it. So between B and C, you pick the best answer. All right, and then the last thing is a because but so. Colton accepts the mission because, this is the reason. Colton accepts the mission but what is happening, right? Colton accepts the mission, so as a result, what happens? Awesome job! Guys, you did a great job. As always, I love you. Be good. Have a wonderful day. Bye!